Well, what is going on, gang? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. It's very nice to have you here today. This is not something I do a lot of. This is a long-term review. This is the Schrade Truix. Truix. It is part of their Alpha Class series. It's a goofy name. But I've had this for a year now, or a little more, and I'll be damned, it's a really good knife. It just is. My history with Schrade goes back a long time. I've used their fixed blades for camping forever and ever, long before I had the sort of higher end stuff that I have, and they've never failed me. So a while back when Schrade said, we're going to do USA made knives and high end materials, and they're going to cost $170, I went, okay. But then I got this, and I was like, yeah, all right. That's cool. I like it. And I do. It is S35VN. It is steel liners. I think this is aluminum bolsters. It is G10 scales. It is filthy because this turns out to be one of the knives that I grab and go when I got to go outside and do stuff way more often than I thought I would. Now, for those of you that don't know, I got about 250 knives in my pocket knife collection. So I have endless choices. And yet this thing goes with me to the garden and out into the world all the time. In the year that I have had it, I have had to tighten the pivot twice. Make of that what you will. It has never had an alignment issue. It remains centered. It has held its edge beautifully. I think I've sharpened this once, twice, maybe. And I don't mean like a full sharpening either. I mean just basic ceramic rod and then sort of stropping it back to a nice edge. It is very slicey. At $170, when it came out a year ago, that seemed expensive. But in today's world of almost $300 Spydercos and $400 Benchmades, a USA-made knife for less than $200 that has survived as well as this has is worth talking about again. Let's get the basic specs out of the way. If you've seen the original video, this will be repetitive, but maybe some of you haven't. What do you get? Well, you get so close to 3 inches of cutting. We're talking about 2 and what? 15/16 inches of cutting on just about 3 1/8 inch overall of that CPM S35VN. That's a really nice blade. I really like that. Anyway, so you get just about 3 inches of cutting. Grip area from behind the swell, you were looking at 3 and just a little bit shy of 3 3/4. It's got plenty of room for my monster mitts, right? It's very comfortable. It's a relatively lean design, as you can see. It's got a big lanyard spot for those of you that like lanyarding. There you go. You can see it there. I don't, but you might. The steel liner's got a little bit of jimping back here on the tail, which I mean, and I guess it sits into your palm. I've never even really thought about it. I don't use it for anything, but there it is. It is a bar lock, and a very nice one. The action on this thing, after a year, is very good. It has held up to everything I have thrown at it. It's just a really nice pocket knife for $170. All right, tip to tail, we are coming in at 7.5, a little over 7.5, but not much. Closed length, 4.5. And in the pocket, it's an absolute joy because 1 1/8, right, does not take up a lot of pocket. And because it is a bar lock, right, there's nothing sticking out. There's no flipper tab to catch on stuff in your pocket. I do have 2.5 complaints. So let's get those out of the way. First, this pocket clip, which is tied to the half complaint. It is very thin. There's not a lot of space through here. And the screws are proud. It is deep carry, which is nice, but if you're wearing thick jeans, and I do when I go out and work in the yard or the garden or whatever, this can be a bit of a pain in the ass to get in and out of the pocket. That's tied to the other thing. This G10, which if you had any of the Schrade fixies, you know that they love this black and white layered G10, which then makes such cool patterns when they mill it, and it is milled. This stuff is sandpaper. I mean, it is really, really grippy, which is awesome, except on this side where this very narrow pocket clip touches down on these almost sandpaper grippy edges on the G10. That's not perfect. The knife is not perfect. But I like it. So pocket clip is one complaint. The G10 is very grippy. That's another. And the final complaint is, well, it's kind of personal. And it's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with the functionality of the knife, is that why is there a giant serial number and their made in the USA stamp, which makes it feel very not made in the USA. And it's a modified American flag, which I don't love. And then on this side, we've got the Alpha clap and the I'm not a huge blade billboarding guy. They sort of went for it, but look at that action. Can I do that again? It's so good. I think I'm going to start doing more long-term reviews because there are some knives that I was absolutely in love with when I got them that have not held up this well. So, shall we weigh it? Let's weigh it. The Truix here, as I said, is steel liners with aluminum bolsters, big thick pieces of G10. And in fact, 2.8 millimeters of S35 VN. Coming in at 4.2 ounces. Yep, it's a little heavy, but there's a lot going on here. The action's so good. I said in a recent video that one of the reasons I like tantos is because of this little point right here. If you're doing draw cuts, it gives you a place to set down and draw back, right? This has done a remarkable job at just being an everyday cutting tool, and I really like it. They could have milled the steel liners. They did not. That's not helping. Maybe that? Anyway. They could have done a lot of little extra steps, but if they do those extra steps, then something happens. We have to pay for it. So they kept this at $170. Well, that's how. I'm not going to say they cut corners. They did not. They just didn't go the extra mile in a couple of spots where they could have. I would have liked some jimping on the spine of the blade, although I will say the 90-degree angle is nice. You can strike a Firestone with this really well. Look, they made a good knife. I'm very glad I own it. It has been an excellent addition to my collection, and I think you would like one too if you don't want to spend $300, $400, $500 for American-made. You don't have to. You can spend $170. And it's a company that's been around forever. Anyway, this is the Schrade Truix. After a year of fairly industrious use, it has held its edge beautifully. It has held together beautifully. The action is still good. It does not look... I have knives that you carry them a couple of times and man, can you see it. But this thing just doesn't show wear. Anyway, I'll put a link in the description to where you can find one if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about this or any of my knives, feel free to ask down in the comments below. Get one of these if you've been thinking about it. You will not be disappointed. And remember, gang, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We'll see you next time.